Hey everybody. So in this tutorial we'll break it up into two different videos. The first one will be learning about different couple of lights. Not all of them, but we're starting to learn about lighting. And the second part will be compositing in Photoshop. So here we have part one, different types of lights that you can get. I've got a scene here which is set up, posed and everything, but as you can see that's all that consists: character and the camera. So there's two things that you always need before you light, which will automatically be created. And if you hit iRay, you'll get them, or you can make them yourself. Tone mapper and environment. Okay. We'll go over tone mapper very briefly. This is something you need to play with. It's a nice way of messing with your image, but I don't mess with it too much because I want to do the post inside of Photoshop. But if you're not going to use Photoshop, then go ahead and experiment with some of these settings. The one that I do mess with a lot is exposure value, and that's in tone map options. And the higher it goes, the darker your scene becomes. And I quite like this because if I light my scene, I want it to start off pretty darkish, and then I can start lighting it as I desire, using my own lighting, etc. So there I am, just moving a couple of options along. Like I say, go over it, check it out. There's some nice ones if you want to do saturation. So if you want to do like black and white images with a little bit of a tint. But once again, all of these I don't touch because I like to do post in Photoshop, and that's where you have ultimate power. If I do something black and white here and I want to take it into post later and make it color, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So I like to have a full-blown image, and then you can do whatever you want. So just putting on a basic render. So we're going to start off with a point light. Now, point light shines in all directions. It's important to know because it'll shine the back, front, top, bottom, whatever, and that's what a point light does. So over here, we're just going to create one of those, move it a little bit up, and it's important to know what each light does. And there's your intensity, and you can start messing around with it very nicely. Now, I like to face all my lights, whether it's a point light or direction light or rectangle light. I like to have the blue arrow facing away because this allows me to use it with any type of light, and I know it's in the right direction. You can always create like a point light and later in the parameter settings change it to a rectangle light, and there's a couple of other options there too that you can use. So you can always create a light and later on change it within the parameters, and you'll be good to go. Create the light that best suits your needs. And the nice thing is because we've pointed the blue arrow away, it works. It's facing in the correct direction. So it's just a nice little practice there. I'm just showing you an example of like a point light, a rectangle light, and soon we'll start getting onto directional lights. So that's it. The nice thing about a rectangle light is you can change the width and height of the light. And the bigger these are, the more diffused and soft they become. So you'll get, if you want something like a baby photo or something nostalgic, it's quite nice to use these, something that shows warmth and remembrance or something. Make them bigger and you get a way bigger diffuse. The smaller they are, the more sharp and strong they are. Now this is a directional light. This is like a sunlight. You can create one and it'll light up in that direction. It'll light your entire scene from that direction. Now, one thing you'll notice is if any lights are shining upwards and they're below the ground floor, they don't render because there's a ground floor. What you can do is you can just go into your environment options, scroll down to the bottom, and you can switch off the rendering of the floor, and then your light will work. So if you ever see something, a black image, and you don't know why it's working, and the light's facing upwards, just switch off your floor. Spotlights are another one. Now these are things I don't use a lot. because they're very focused lights. However, you can get some interesting shapes with them. So you can highlight something like this that you see on screen now. You can get like a really dramatic kind of light. Spotlights are very dramatic. They have a focus point, a hot point, and then they fade off on the sides. This you can always change. But if you want something that's really focused on stage lighting or something to pop out really hard, spotlights are pretty good for those. They're quite harsh lights, and they a little bit harder to control than a rectangle light, but they are quicker to render and they do give good results. The one thing about a spotlight is they give harsh shadows. They're known for giving hard shadows. So that's something you got to watch out for. You need to create them when you're looking for a certain type of shadow. They're great for that kind of thing. When the shadow is meant, they're great to use. Now the one thing I do is I start off, if you go to the light and go to its parameters, you can point it at, and usually what I do is I take the light and I point it at a certain point that I want to start working on. So it could be the finger, it could be the head, the eye, whatever it is, I'll point it to that, and that makes moving lights a hell of a lot easier. So try that, check it out, and when you're done with getting your basic lighting with that light, unparent it. So it's not pointed at anything anymore. Sorry, not parent, unpointed. And then you can move it freely for your little tweaks and just getting it perfectly what you want, what you're looking for. All right. So as you can see, I've started making a couple lights now, point lights and directional lights. I'm mainly using rectangle lights, and I've put them behind the head. You can see there, just to give that little backlight of the hair. And there I've got a point light on the side, a spotlight on the side of the face. And that's what gives me, you can see those two lights at the back there, rectangle lights shining on the back of the head. This kind of shines it up. And then I've changed that light now to a directional, what are they called? Rectangle. Damn it, they're called area lights in every other program. So lighting it up, and you can see already the shadows are a lot less. That's what I like about rectangle lights. They're good for lighting, especially if you're doing portraits. They are fantastic for portraits. Even in a real studio, if you go and get a portrait done, you've got these diffused rectangle lights, and this is exactly what it's mimicking. So over here I'm trying that spotlight, just seeing what they do. It's good to make like a couple of lights in your scene, and this is just testing phase. So you're messing around, you're seeing what they do, you know what I mean, having some fun with it. The biggest thing is have fun with it. Create a couple of lights in your scene, place them around, and then you'll notice in my works I switch them on and off all the time, and I see what the one is doing and going back to the next and seeing what the next is doing, and then start adding it. Once I'm happy, I do it and carry on just adding and subtracting lights. HDRIs, what I first do is I go into my environment options and I switch on dome only. I don't want to see any of the lights. I just want to see what the dome is doing, the HDRI dome. And then I start messing around and going through all or many of the HDRIs that I have. I see what they like, and the one thing that I mess around with a lot is dome rotation inside of environmental options, and tone mapper options. I mess with the exposure value, and I flip that up to 15 because it gives me a darker light and it gives me a nicer representation of how I want to see my work. So mess around with that exposure value in tone mapping. I wouldn't go too crazy. 13, 15. 13 is your original, and 15 gives you a darker image, and the lower you go, the brighter your image gets. Now, on the screen you see that I use snippets. It's fantastic to quickly take quick snippets of a render, and then you do changes to that with the lighting, and then you can bring up your snippet and you can compare the two renders. And this way you can see if it's looking better or worse, and you can go back, or you can be happy with it, take that as your next snippet, and then continue lighting. So I do that a lot. As you can see, it's a lot of work. You're moving lights around, you testing with the dome and the lights. Once I have a dome that I'm happy with, then I start to light. So all of this is kind of my pre-phase. I play a lot. I look at different domes. If I see a dome that I like, then I start putting lights around it. But a lot of the time, I don't like it. And right there, you see, I started messing with the dome. I got a dome that I kind of liked. And then I started putting my lights into the scene. And I got to a point where I wasn't happy. So it's playing. It's non-stop just playing and checking out what HDRIs you have, and start opening up different lights to it, rotating the domes, moving them around. So I always have a couple of lights set up that I can automatically start creating my image, and I've put them in kind of the right places, kind of the right intensities, that I can straight off the bat just start working. Now the one thing I love to do about lights is I put the lumens all the way up to about 6,000 or whatever, so they're really bright, and then all I have to do is mess with the intensity of the light. So I can bring the intensity down, all the way down or up, and I control the entire light just with the intensity. So here we are, just checking it out. I got a dome nice, and now I'm looking at the different lights. I'm lighting a couple of things. I'm changing the colors of the lights so it all comps together well, and it looks like one image. And this, I think to myself, okay, it's looking pretty good. It's all good. But never settle. If something looks wrong, you should never go on with it. So what we want to create here is kind of a semi-realistic Disney witch or something. It's not supposed to look realistic, but it's supposed to have those realistic elements, but be kind of stylized in a way. And that's it. We are starting new domes. So once again, I did the light setup. I saw something I liked. I started lighting it, messing around, but it didn't feel right. So I'll go back. I know what I've done, and I'll start again, and I'll look for something that I'm happy with. And this kind of made me a lot happy. I liked the one side of the face lighting. I found the dome I liked. I rotated into the position I liked, and now I can actually start lighting my character. And this is pretty cool. Now, once I've got my dome, I'm happy with it. I've tested all the ones I wanted to, and I'm happy with this one. Then I can start adding the lights. As you can see, I've had a couple of lights in my scene already, so they're just great. I can just carry on manipulating them. I start bringing the highlights into the hair, getting the detail in the hair, but I want to try and keep that one side of her face dark. I'll put a nice rectangle light in the back of her head just to shine that little bit of hair. If the hair isn't giving you this kind of result with like that kind of brightness on the rim, mess with the transparency of your hair. Now remember, lighting is not just about putting lights down, it's also messing with your materials. So the hair material, I put a lot more translucency on it. It's changing the colors. Over here I thought, okay, let me try and change the color of her hair, see if something works better. So remember, lighting a scene isn't about just the lights. It's about your materials, your colors, your what clothes you are, and the settings of those, the roughness, the specular, the reflection. All these things help with the lighting, and all of them react differently with lighting. So here, trying different hairstyles, different hair colors and things. And remember, it's about having fun. It's not about trying to get the image just done. So over here, look, I put the translucency of the hair all the way down, so it's not that translucent, but I get these nice highlights now. and I can put down a nice rectangle light, and I can start getting these really nice little speculars of the hair. So I put the translucency of the hair material down, and this is the result it gives me, which is awesome. I didn't like the colors of the thingamabobs she's wearing, so I turned them into black, and I thought this worked really well, a lot better. Why? Because the white was putting a focus on something I didn't want to. I want to put a focus on the face, and that's what I want to focus on. So if the clothes are too bright, bring them down. They don't need to be seen. They need to be seen, not heard. I don't know what the saying is. Anyway, so now things start looking a lot better. I think the side of the face was a little bit too... I wanted to pop out the finger and the mouth. But there we go. I tried. I put a rectangle light because you can focus it on the things you want. I made it really small, and I put it very close to the finger and lips, and I was getting kind of cool results, but they weren't results that I was happy with. If you feel something is wrong, it's wrong. Take the time and the effort to do it properly. I get it. There's always something more you can do in an image, and things can take years and years to make, but if something is very wrong, stop. Just go back and just get it done. It's all good. Enjoy the process. You're creating art. It's an amazing thing that we can do, and you need to enjoy it. The moment you stop enjoying it is the moment it doesn't become art anymore. And you can see it. You can see the love in an image. Now I was putting the light here, and I saw that it made a cool line on her face, and that was pretty cool. But something it didn't look right. So I took it out, and what I went for was brightening up that side of her face a little bit more, mainly focusing on the lips and the finger. So you'll see later I start to do these kind of things. I put a light way off in the distance, so it doesn't really light the character, but you see those little specks in her eyes? Those are rectangle lights in the distance, in the right positions, that don't light the character, but the eyes pick up the reflections of the lights. And you can make the width and the length big as you want. Don't make them too big because it looks weird. You want those awesome little specks, so they small. I kept mine on about 20 or 30 centimeters, the width and the height of it. Now over here I wanted to light just a little bit under her neck, so I grabbed another rectangle light, and I just started messing with it. This took me a long time to get right. That damn little lighting under her chin. Eventually I got it right, but it's about just taking your time. You can see it just, no matter where I put it, it just gave me weird results. Once again, always checking, always taking a frame, a screen grab, and comparing it to what you had before. This is it'll speed up your life completely. Sometimes you think, oh, I did something so amazing before, but you don't have a screen grab, so you can't prove it. But sometimes you think, oh, it was way better before, and you got the screen grab, and you think, actually, no, I'm on the right track now. So there we go. Shine it up a little bit, you know what I mean? Setting up the render. Everything looking good. Now, the render I usually put on twice. I put my settings quite high because I don't mind waiting. I wait about an hour for the image. But then I've got a really clean and clear image. And there we go. This is what I'm doing now. Started doing some nice renders. Something I saw that I didn't like, and I just got a tiara. Oh, depth of field. So I played a lot with my depth of field. You're going to switch on depth of field, and you're only going to be messing with what is it called? Focal distance and f-stop. Focal distance is where it is, and f-stop is how big or small your depth of field is. Those are the only two you're going to mess with. Get something you like. I always work in two modes. So the one is rendering my image, and the other one is perspective. And the reason I do that is because it goes a lot quicker. Working in a rendered view takes ages to move anything. always work in like an unrendered perspective view or something. Then I got a little tiara, added the final little touch, and I thought that worked quite cool actually. And that's it. I set up my render, I lit what I needed to light, got my depth of field in there, and put up my render settings, and rendered them. I rendered a couple of shots. I rendered this one, which is pretty cool, and I'm not going to be doing these ones up, but the one that I will be doing up is this one. And this will be in my next tutorial. I hope you catch me with it, and this will be the post-processing. Thanks guys, see you later.